Oliver, thank you very much for helping to organise the conference. Can you tell us what the main themes of the conference will be?
So from the WIPAC, the Water Industry Process Automation and Control point of view, we've got a couple of days in the conference, and I'm also trying to encourage a lot of the supply chain to put some training videos together. In the past, we've done the WIPAC Learning Zone. This, of course, this time being WEM virtual is going to be a little bit different. So I'm in contact with quite a few members of the supply chain at the exhibitors at WEM to put some training videos. There's going to be in virtual WEM, there's going to be a digital library which people can use almost as a reference point and visit there. So with training videos and various sound bites and various snapshots of around instrumentation, that the sort of less experienced members of the industry, the non-instrumentation geeks, if you want to call it, can go and visit and learn some of the background details of around the various techniques. But also at each WEM, for the past few WEMs now, we've had the flow forum, where we've very much talked about wastewater flow. We're going to be repeating that this time. And of course, flow within the wastewater part of the water industry is very relevant at the minute. There's a very large program on flow-to-full treatment, and hopefully we'll get some updates from the water companies, the Environment Agency, the regulators around that. Then that's going to be part of the first day. We're also looking at managing flow data and how we can use both flow and event duration monitoring data to look at how we can use the data that we collect. What are some of the pitfalls? What are some of the learning points? And perhaps something around the systems that we can use. Then probably the final session of the flow forum will be very much what's the new technology coming onto the market. We've had a few suppliers bring out some quite novel and great techniques, but also there are some techniques, flow measurement techniques, that I think the water industry needs and that are missing. How can we encourage that and bring that in? In the past, we've talked about surface velocity flow measurement, how we can use novel techniques, especially considering flow is so crucial at the minute. And that kind of leads into our second day, which is very much going to be around pollution. Pollution, we've seen, is a very relevant topic at the minute. A lot of the stakeholder groups have been talking about pollution and how it's a problem within the water industry. That need to measure, the whole theme of the day is going to be around measurement and how we can use measurement to help us manage pollution in a much better way. So the first session of the day is very much going to be around the need to measure. Why do we need to measure? Why do we measure? What have we done to measure? How much do we need to measure? Is it event duration monitoring, or is it a flow monitor with quality monitoring and absolutely everything on each and every CSO, which would make people's water bills go through the roof? Is it practical? What do we actually need to do? Second session of the day, how we measure. So there's some techniques out there, some technologies out there that are great, but are they relevant? What sort of accuracy do we need on measurement? So around event duration monitoring, 5 millimeters being used. There's a lot of technologies that can do that. There's some that can't. But what sort of level of accuracy do we need around that measurement? What do we need to measure? What's going to have the best bang for the measurement buck, we say? And then lastly, the last session of the pollution forum is going to be very much on how we manage it. We've got all this data. Hopefully it's good quality because we've installed it correctly. And there's some really, really great techniques. Some of the supply chain out there have been doing some great work on how we manage pollution within the wastewater network, how we use the data to infer where there's a potential problem on the wastewater network. But again, how we bring that in the wastewater system together, of not just the collection network, but the treatment works as well. how can we use that to control the system better? How can we get into more smart and intelligent networks? You've got companies like Anglian Water have looked at digital twins. You've got Southern Water recently in the news have gone, we want to measure our networks better. And then we're going to use that. But we've also got potentials of how we can inform the public. So it's very important at the minute, visualization. Always is. We as technical geeks and scientists, as people who attend WEM, know what we're talking about. But how do we communicate that data to the public? So we've seen things like the Rivers Trust, their great CSO map. It's a fantastic visualization that informs the public of what's happening. You've got other companies out there who are Surface Against Sewage have produced for quite a few things, the mobile phone app. Is that a good way of communicating to the public where the problems lie and how we can manage the problems?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Even in thinking on the how we measure section, looking at citizen science, we've seen a lot of stakeholder groups at the minute, a lot of the local rivers trusts looking at pollution. It becomes very visual. How can we use that citizen science, ad hoc as it is at the minute, to help inform the situation?
Okay.
To help highlight the issues.
Do you imagine that many of the speakers will be discussing what the situation is or will be post-Brexit?
To be honest, I don't. Brexit, I think, for this is not relevant. I think it's a much bigger issue. We've seen in the recent days climate change report coming out. We've seen a lot of the water companies really releasing their race to net zero. Pollution is in there, and it's intrinsically linked in there. So yes, we in the water industry are in a situation where we're using the analysis of the effluent from the treatment works, and we're driving down towards lower and lower and lower and lower permit limits. There's a balance there of, yes, you can produce distilled deionized water out the back of a wastewater treatment works, but the environmental cost of that is huge. Absolutely huge, because the power consumption and the consumables that you use is vast. The financial cost, yes, but dare I say this, the financial cost almost be damned, because the environmental cost is a lot higher. And a lot of people are saying, well, that environmental cost is there, but how do we get the best bang for our buck? So where I say pollution, there was a great paper, great PhD student a few years ago from the University of Exeter, and she presented a SWIG webinar, a SWIG workshop even, that I was hosting. And she basically said, if we manage the wastewater system in a more efficient way using process-based control, we can get a much better environmental benefit, a much better environmental benefit for a lower cost. And you would have thought, when she said that quite publicly, you'd have thought everyone going, better environmental benefit, lower cost. Hey, that's a win-win. So why aren't we doing it now? And of course, it's a lot more complicated than that. But yes, in its way, what that was saying is, yes, if we stop the CSO spills, treated more through the wastewater treatment works, then actually we'd get a better bang for our buck, because the crude sewage isn't coming out of the network, it's actually being treated. So then that comes, and this is probably where the industry is going to go in the next 15 to 20 years, is yes, we sort out the quantity problem that we have in the wastewater system at the minute. Hopefully then, actually, if we're treating more crude sewage through the wastewater treatment works and not getting these spills, then perhaps we can then look at, do we really need a phosphorus content of 0.2 milligrams, which actually I believe is below the best available technology at the minute, which is kind of scary.
Yeah.
As you're going towards that cutting edge technologies, you're obviously using more and more power or resources or whatever. Can we actually, what's our best environmental benefit there?
Yeah.
Almost financial cost be damned.
Yeah.
Because in the end, the financial cost 15, 20 years down the line is going to be much higher.
Yeah. Okay, that all sounds great. So presumably within all of those discussions, the monitoring themes will be effectively water quality and flow, along with data management and processing. Pretty much, and how we visualize, how we communicate that through visualization. Communication, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and presumably it's quite a big exhibitor list. A lot of the themes that will be addressed by the conference will tie quite nicely in with some of the exhibitors.
They will. I mean, certainly the last session of the Flow Forum is all I usually try and get that technology in there, try and get the exhibitors in there, try and get the novel techniques that actually have been released since the last WEM.
Yeah.
The supply chain do brilliantly in an innovation. Sometimes we see the big bang innovation, and we've seen the Ofwat competitions trying to get that big bang innovation. But a lot of the supply chain do what I call a creeping innovation, that product development. And it's that product development that can really, really help the industry greatly. I don't want to name any names, but over the past few years, I've seen some great work certainly on instrumentation data quality using HARP protocols, and it's great, and that's what helps. It's that discussion on that creeping innovation. It's the discussion between the supply chain and the water companies, what's going to help. And a lot of the supply chain do some great work around that, and it's great to highlight it, because again, those discussions may just be between X water company and a supply chain. It'd be really good if you could develop X, and then I'll be talking to a company. It'll get released, and 6 months down the line, the company will go, "Oh, I didn't know they were doing that. Oh, that's really useful." So it's nice to highlight the work that the industry, the supply chain has been doing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of why I set up the learning zone, was to provide that other aspect to WEM to help justify a technician coming.
So do you think, now that it's virtual, that more of the technicians will be allowed to spend some time logging in and
well, it's even if it's the fact that it's virtual, all the content's recorded and available. In some ways, yes, it's great to be there, but also it's available afterwards.
To probably mention at this point that the content will be available to everybody that's pre-registered.
Yes.
If people don't pre-register, then they won't be, well, they'd have to pay for access to the presentations after the event. So
the importance is to register, yeah.
Exactly. And one of the advantages of pre-registering is it provides you with the opportunity to see who else is going to the event, and then you can arrange meetings. So for example, if you're a technician in flow monitoring, and there's a couple of companies that you want to talk to, then you can, if you see them on the list, you can make contact with them and arrange to have an online chat with them and meet them virtually during the event, and pre-registering provides you with that capability.
And of course, with the app, it's all available on a mobile phone as well.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily have to be in an office. Find some time at a lunchtime. Join the event, and on you go.
Yeah, and I've spoken to some of the exhibitors as well, and they were telling me that one of the great things about it being virtual is, some of them have got manufacturers in other countries. They can't have an expert spending 2 days staring at a screen in case somebody asks a question. So the thing to do is, if you want to have a discussion with an expert from a company, is to make an appointment, because that way they can make best use of their time, and they can say, okay, I'll be available for an hour then and an hour then, and answer specific questions from specific people that they've prearranged to talk to them.
Definitely, and of course with the digital library that's available, then there's going to be a lot of presentations, a lot of learning opportunities and development opportunities there from everyone from technicians to engineers. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. I've got a really good flavour of what the event's going to be about now. Anything more to add before we finish?
I think it's going to be a great couple of days, and I think there's, yes, of course, if we're all there physically, then it'd be fantastic. And WEM's always been part as some of the great things about WEM's, it's been physical, but virtual, I think, will give us a new way of working, and I think it's going to be a great couple of days.
Okay, that's great. Thanks very much, Oliver.
Thanks, Graham.